All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Then we have the three of us as staff, and then there's six additional people participating. So go ahead. My name is Keith Abraham, Parks and Recreation Director with the City of Ames. We also have Kelly Omlid, who's the Recreation Superintendent, and then Katie Cole, who is our Secretary for the department. She'll be taking some notes. So what we're going to do tonight is going to go through just some information regarding splash pad and the location. And first off, I want to thank everybody for coming. And at the end, we'll have an opportunity for you to provide input. And it'll be two ways, and we'll go through it again. But you'll be able to raise your hand. At the bottom of your screen, there should be a raise hand button. You can click on that, and we will see that your hand is raised, and then we'll unmute you and ask you to go ahead and speak. The other way that you'll be able to provide input is there'll be a Q&A. You can click on that, type in a question, and then Kelly and I at the end will be responding to those questions as well. So again, thank you for coming. And first off, just with the meeting purpose, just going to explain what a splash pad is if you're not familiar with that. We'll go through some criteria for selecting a potential site and review of potential sites, and then gather feedback. So right now in the process, when we get to the sites, just so everybody knows, we will be taking this information to the Parks and Recreation Commission on Thursday, March 25th at 4:00 is their meeting, and we'll be making a recommendation to the commission. Commission will then make a recommendation to City Council, and City Council will then make the final decision on a location. And then we're looking at that probably will be either April 13th or April 27th, one of those two dates. So this is what we're gonna cover tonight. And just in regards to splash pads and some just a little bit of information. So they are zero depth, which means there is no standing water. The surface is relatively flat. There is some slope to it, so water does drain to the drains, but it is there is no standing water. So there is in-ground spray features, which we'll show you some pictures of those. Above ground water features. There is a programmable timer on the splash pads. So if our hours of operation, let's just say, are from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., the features would only work during that time, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Or whatever that time frame is. So that's what the timer is. Activation button, we'll show some pictures there. And then we are going with a recirculation system, and I'll explain that in a little bit as well. So as far as zero depth, like I mentioned, and these are just a couple of examples of what splash pads could look like with it. And you can see that they're relatively flat. There is no standing water on each of them. You do see a difference. There's concrete on the left. There's a little bit of color in there. But you can also make the concrete with more colors and some patterns, and you can have sometimes there are some different surfaces, rubber may be an option for a surface as well. So that's what we mean when we say zero depth. So in-ground spray features are features that the water comes out of the ground or at ground level. So you can see just some different options on the left with those spray features. You can see just a little bit more water coming out, depending on how they're programmed. Water could be at different levels. You can see that middle picture where the water is coming out a lot higher. And then on the right, you can see, it can come out at angles, it can come out in patterns, it can do a number of different things. But But really with the in-ground spray features is the water is coming out at ground level and shooting up in some manner. As far as above ground water features, these are just some different pictures. Again, you can see a variety of things with it. You know, there's some are a little bit lower, some are a little bit higher. Kind of in that middle top picture, you can kind of see some rings, and the water sprays into the middle of those rings, and people can kind of walk through those and get sprayed. You can also see in that middle picture, kind of towards the back, there's kind of a dump bucket and some different types of features. In the bottom picture, you know, there is you know, opportunities for, you know, some water play. You can see some kind of channels that the water flows down, and people can kind of, you know, work through that. And then on the right, there is like a water cannon, shoots water out. You can generally turn those into different directions, you know, spray people. So those are just some examples of some above ground, you know, water features. Activation button, you know, this is, you know, we've mentioned about the timer, that the water would only, or the features would only function between a certain time frame, but they aren't on all the time. So the activation button, if it is between those hours, say 11 a.m. and 7 p.m., there's an activation button, and they look different ways. On the left, it's just a button that when you push that, you can program the features that they could all turn on at one time, or they could wind up sequencing through the different features. The one in the middle is just a handprint. You go over, you kind of put your hand on there, push on it, and then again activates it. And then there are some that you know, just activated by pushing with your foot, kind of a step here, and that would activate. So two different things: the timer and then the activation button as well. So mentioned recirculation system. So there's really two different types of systems. There's a flow-through system where you use potable water. It goes through the features, and then it just goes directly to the drain. And we did look at that option. City Council, we did present these different options to the council, and they went with the recirculation system. And one of the reasons is in the flow-through system, we gave them an example where we probably use somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 7 million gallons of water with a flow-through system. So that water just going through the system, and then it's back down into the sanitary sewer or the storm sewer. With the recirculation system, it operates a little bit more like a pool. And with this, this just kind of gives you a picture of it. There is the control system. The water goes out the features. It goes to the drains. It goes through a kind of like a strainer basket. So if there's debris or anything that's brought into the splash pad, that gets kind of filtered out, and then it gets put back into the tank, and then it gets cycled back through. This water is treated, like I said, it is treated like a pool. So it operates like that. So the water is treated, and we would have makeup water. But with this, you know, we're looking at probably in the neighborhood of maybe 650 to 700,000 gallons roughly, you know, per year during the season that it would be open. The season, I'll just mention that real quick. We would look at like a Memorial Day to Labor Day, you know, for this for the splash pad. It is also something that we would not man it. There would not be a staff person on site except for, you know, testing chemicals throughout the day, and then every so often there would be some maintenance. We may have to backwash the filters and do some other maintenance, but that would happen you know, throughout the week occasionally. So those are some things in regards to the pool or the splash pool. So location criteria, we did look at a number of different criteria, and some of the criteria, the first one is there's two codes that we operate by. One is with the Iowa Department of Health has a code, that we use for aquatics. And then also there's a model aquatic health code, which is more of a national code with it. So one of the things with both of those codes, when you do a recirculation system, a restroom is required. And that restroom needs to be within 200 feet of the splash pad. And it has there needs to be a clear sight line between the splash pad and the restroom. Some other things that we looked at is an amenity like this, we do not want to put it in the floodplain. We currently have a wading pool, which is at Brookside Park. Does that when it's full, it has 18 inches of water roughly. We do staff it, it's small, not a lot of play value, but there is some, and it's in the floodplain. But we want to make this out of the floodplain. I also want to make sure that it fits with the park philosophy, and we'll show you some examples here in a little bit of where it does not fit with the park philosophy. Is there space available within the park? Is there relatively flat space? And I know flat space is a relative term. There's always some slope, some undulations with it, but we can work with the space and do some work on that. Is there parking available? One of the things that we want to look is it visible from the road? Are people able to see it when they're driving by? That also does help from a safety standpoint as well. Minimize maintenance issues. If it is a very wooded area, there's a lot of leaves that increases the amount of maintenance. Leaves on the surface with their tannins also do leave stains, on the surface, which then requires more work to take those off. So we try to minimize the maintenance issues as much as possible. Safety is also something that we look at. Safety of the users. Is it in the open? Is it secluded? How can you get there? The way to get there, is it safe? Community equity, from that standpoint, we try to look at when we're putting the amenities into the park system. We don't want to put them all in the same part of town. We want to try to get them out in different parts of town, and with the two locations that you'll see, McCarthy Lee as one option and DALEY Park is the other option. It does get some amenities out in the west part of town, which we do not have a lot of amenities besides the park space, and then easy to access. So those are some of the things that we looked at. Again, we aren't able to always accommodate or meet all of this criteria, and doesn't mean that if we don't meet all the criteria, doesn't mean that the splash pad could not still be in that location, except for the first three. If it doesn't have a restroom, meets that criteria, it's not going to be a good. We won't be able to do it. If it's in the floodplain, we don't want to do it. And if it doesn't fit with the park philosophy. So what we did, we have 38 parks, and what we did is we looked at all 38 parks and started kind of going through the criteria, and be able to some just because of size and so on, we're able to eliminate fairly quickly. But like we mentioned with the restroom requirement, we have permanent restrooms, and when we say restroom, we're looking at a permanent restroom. So with that, we get down to these 8 parks. So Ada Hayden, Van Shell, Brookside, DALEY, Emma McCarthy Lee, Innis Grove, Moore Memorial, and then River Valley Park. So those are the ones that have restrooms. So we went from 38 down to 8, pretty quickly. And then what we did is we looked at the criteria as well. So so some of the things you can kind of take a look at that first column with the restroom, and there are some ends. And to just mention that East Brookside, what we're referring to there is some green space east of the creek, Iowa Creek, in Brookside Park along Brook Ridge and 6th. So that is was a space that we looked at, but the restroom is not within 200 feet, and it's not clear sight lines. Innis Grove also, there is some open space there, but again, not within 200 feet of a restroom. And also, when we put the Miracle Park there, we have sand volleyball courts up at Innis Grove, and there was concern from the Parks and Recreation Commission and the city council and the neighbors about putting too much into that park. So in addition to the restrooms not being there, that is another component that we looked at with Innis Grove. And then with Moore Memorial Park, with that one, not clear sight lines to a restroom if we look at where would go. And then when you look at out of the floodplain, the west part of Brookside, which is where the wading pool is right now, that's not out of the floodplain. River Valley's not out of the floodplain. And then when we look at Fitzwood Park philosophy, so Ada Hayden Heritage Park, the whole philosophy of that park is a conservation park, natural setting, and an amenity like this. We have had requests for playgrounds, for soccer fields, for other things up at Ada Hayden Heritage Park, and we have not put those up there because it just doesn't fit with the park philosophy. The other one, bandshell, that doesn't fit with the park philosophy. The bandshell is an entertainment area. We do municipal band, we have rentals, we do movie in the park, and in order to put so it's kind of more of an entertainment venue, so it really doesn't fit with it, and plus the space is an issue. So really, when you look at those first 3 columns, it really then gets down to Daley Park and Emma McCarthy Lee Park, those 2 locations. So as far as Emma McCarthy Lee Park, what we looked at, and again, to be within 200 feet of the restroom, which is again in the upper left-hand corner. So this is the lower part of the park where the tennis courts are. The space in the yellow is the area that we would look at. The size of this right now is we're looking at probably about just under 5,000 square feet, roughly in that neighborhood. So that could be a 50 by 100 space. It could be a 70 by 70 foot space. But this would be the area that we would be looking at. As far as Daley Park, the area that we would look at, Wilder is kind of on the left part of the screen or that picture. So you can see the parking. That is the area. You see the shelter. Kind of in the top middle section is a basketball pad, and then off to the right, we do have a playground and a set of swings. So the area that we would be looking at would be right there. So that kind of gives you an overview of what splash pads are, the criteria that we had looked at, and then the 2 locations that we're down to. So with that, we would look at, any comments, concerns, that people have. And, I see that we are, up to 13 participants, which is good. So again, with this, if you want to speak, you could at the bottom of your screen, there should be a raise hand feature. So you could hit that and you could speak, or if you would like, you can put the questions, type of question into the Q&A, and then Kelly and I will look at answering those. So with that said, are there any comments, questions, concerns, regarding this? And you can in regards to location, if there are questions in regards to other things. One thing, when we do put this out to bid, we do have an RFP out right now for design, and we'll be hiring a consultant to help us with putting bid documents together. And one of the things that we'll look at is not only the spray pad, but we'll be looking at, depending on how many dollars are available, be looking at the maybe some shade structures as well. So we do have $500,000 for construction. That's what the budget is at this time. So I don't see any hands raised. Oh, Wolf, I see does have his hand raised. So go ahead and unmute Wolf, and then go ahead and comments or questions.
Yeah, so I live on 3300 Ross Road. That's right next to McCarthy Lee Park.
Yep.
Yep. And so generally, I think it's a wonderful idea to have a splash pad somewhere in Ames. It's really great. I see how you ended up with these two parks. McCarthy Lee is always the same problem, right? Which is access. Because this is very narrow road that goes down there, and we had issues with access for some other activities that were planned, like having a volleyball league and other things, because at times there'll be too many cars and it gets just unsafe. So what's your expected attendance of the splash pads? How many kids do you think will show up together with their parents? And do you anticipate any of these access issues that we have with other activities in the park?
Yeah, it's hard to, I guess, from that standpoint. I guess our expectation when we look at other splash pads, throughout the state of Iowa and in other communities, there at times could be nobody there. At times there could be 50 people there. There could be a little bit more. Generally, with these types of amenities, when they're first open or on a very hot day, there's generally more people. So could it get up to 75 people? Could it get up to 100 people? Yes, very, very possible. I would say that if you compare, we used to have, and I know occasionally we still do have some soccer activities, but I know when, back in the late 90s and through the 2000s, we had a lot of soccer games, going on, and I wouldn't expect the traffic to be much more than what we saw during those times.
If I may ask one more question, so just following up on this, the problem that we saw with the access in McCarthy Lee is with these organized events, right, where everything happens on a fixed time schedule, and then things just get overwhelmed because there's this, as I said, just this one lane road down to the park. This is not organized, right? People come and go as they think is appropriate for their kids. If that is the case, then of course the total attendance could be much higher than for these organized events and still not create any problems.
Correct. And right now, just from a time frame, I threw out 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. That is a time frame that we have discussed, but we have not settled on that. So you're exactly right, Wolf. There will be people throughout the day, and depending on the time of day, the number of users, could be higher than 75 for the total day, could be higher than 100. But they are spread out through potentially, 6, 7, or 8 hours.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And if you think that it is a good idea to have a splash pad somewhere in Ames, and I actually think it is a pretty good idea for the kids, having it in West Ames is not a bad idea. And, right next to the tennis courts down in McCarthy Lee, it'll be a little bit of a noise disturbance for us, but these are kids, you know, they have to have something like that. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for those comments, Wolf, and for the questions. Okay. So we do have Sally has her raised hand. So Sally, go ahead and unmute.
Good evening. First of all, I just want to thank you for having this informational session. And it is definitely helpful to see that table of the criteria that you've got laid out as far as evaluating the parks. And I can understand as well the interest in that kind of a park feature. So my feedback would just be as our property butts up to the Emma McCarthy Lee Park boundary line, and just really looking at that criteria, my feedback would just be, it seems that maybe Daley Park would be a bit of a better fit for the splash pad, more accessible to families, a little more open space, and just a bit of a worry that it might take away a little bit from Emma McCarthy Lee's really uniqueness as such a quiet private park that's got that, connection to the woods in a real natural setting. So that's really it. Just feedback that it seems like it may be a little bit of a better fit for Daley's park philosophy, hits more of those criteria such as road visibility, and then the wooded area in Emma McCarthy Lee Park, certainly with regard to maintenance issues as well, it is an important factor, I think. So that's really all just feedback from kind of a neighboring resident of the park.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Sally. And like we said earlier, there's always trade-offs, and you hit on some of them. McCarthy Lee obviously has more parking, down in that area, whereas Daley Park doesn't have as much, parking. But you hit on some of the things that we have discussed as well regarding the two locations.
Yeah, and just one other feedback or comment with parking. One benefit to Daley Park, I think, would be that even if the designated parking is filled up, you at least have some potential for overflow, like on street parking, whereas with Emma McCarthy Lee Park, you have that very long driveway down. And so you just have that lot, and that's, really the extent of the parking. So maybe not such a big consideration, but something that also came to mind.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much again for the opportunity to provide feedback.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we do have, some questions. One from Andrew. Do you have an estimate of how much people traffic the pad would bring to the park? I think we already answered that. Wolf had asked that question. So again, it could be at any one time, could maybe be 50 to 75 people. Obviously more throughout the day because people aren't going to be there the whole time. Jay, thank you as always for your thorough analysis of so many criteria. Seems like it would be a good fit for either park. So thank you for that comment, Jay. We have anonymous. I think parking could be an issue at McCarthy Lee. In summer, the parking lot can be quite full with tennis players and people using the playground. Do you have a plan for parking? Yeah, and right now would be just the lot. Now, and if we do have, if we were to go with that 11 to 7, time frame, when we do have, tennis lessons, there, we generally are earlier in the morning, I believe, maybe 9 to 11, maybe 9 to noon, and one thing, if you do live in the neighborhood, one thing, we'll be having an input session here coming up as well, but I'll just mention it. So we are looking at converting 2 of the tennis courts to pickleball courts. Actually, it would be 2 tennis courts to 6 pickleball courts. So with that, again, look for, and we'll send out a postcard again, and then guessing some of you receive that postcard if just based on where you said. But we are going to take comments about that tonight, but that is something that we'll do public input in the near future on that. So, how long will it take to build? So that's another question from Karina. So with this right now, our time frame for the project is we would get a consultant hired. Like I said, we have an RFP, which is a request for proposal, which is out there right now. And those requests are due, I think, first part of April. So what we'd like to do is take it to City Council, I think on April 13th to award a contract. I'm thinking this is right, Kelly? April 13th?
April 7th, it's due.
Yeah, so it's due April 7th. And then we would take it to council on April 13th and hopefully award a contract. And then the contract and bond would be approved by council hopefully on April 27th. And then we would start working with the consultant. We would hope that we could get bid documents out midsummer and then have it constructed in the fall. So and hopefully we get it done in the fall, but I think we have given we will give the contractors potentially till May 1st of 2022, and then it would open, we'd be open for business on the summer of 2022. So that would be the time frame. So really probably to build maybe 2 months, somewhere in that neighborhood. But again, sometimes when we give contractors a little bit more flexibility to build it, and they can fit it in with other projects, they give us a better price. So that's what we're looking at to get the biggest bang out of our buck. So those are the questions that we've had so far. Does not look like we have any other hands raised. So I know, Kelly, is there anything that we missed or that I've missed that you want to share?
No, I can't think of anything that you've missed.
So from a design perspective, we just will mention too, and Kelly put together the RFP that was sent out for consultants, and we did put in the RFP that this should be accessible, it should be inclusive, and so no matter who it is, no matter what your ability is, you can go in and utilize these elements, whether you're an able-bodied person, you're in a mobility device, you have mobility issues, no matter who it is, everybody will be able to utilize this amenity. So that's something else just wanted to mention for everybody. But we do have, Aldra has her hand raised. So go ahead and unmute, Aldra.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. And I guess I was wondering if there's any thought to a broader view of kind of the lower park. I have talked a little bit with Joshua about the idea of thinking about kind of how people move through the park and where the paths are. So for example, there's like no sidewalks along nowhere to walk from the trailhead over to the main park area. It'd be really nice to have like, a little sidewalk there. There was some talk about whether a nice walking path would go. It seems like a lot of times the sidewalks that are there and the use paths are just kind of like where they ended up, instead of someone actually like thinking about and planning about how you might make the lower park into a nice place to walk and such. And so I guess I'm wondering whether there's any potential to kind of think a little bit more broadly, if you were to choose this, about how we could also kind of build better, kind of more thoughtful paths around the lower area.
Yeah. When you say the trailhead, are you talking the trailhead from for the Munn Woods, or it goes back to Munn Woods area? Yeah.
Yeah. That
okay. Yep. So one of the things that's interesting. So one of the ideas with park design is sometimes what you do is you let people utilize the park, and then put some paths in where people are utilizing it, and that's exactly what happened with from the upper area, the shelter area, down to the lower. That's eventually we did pave that or asphalt that. Because that's how people were getting from one area to the next, and then getting from the parking lot to the bridge. We'll look at that. So one of the things, Haldra, that we'll be doing is so right now, do we have a plan specifically for McCarthy Lee? We do not. And one of the things that we will be doing, the city as a whole is working on a comprehensive plan, the 2040 plan. So what's going to happen in Ames over the next 20 to 25 years, and which way is the city going to grow? Is it going to be to the west? Is it going to be to the north? Will be to the south, to the east? And city council will be adopting that comprehensive plan later this year. So what we will do is, on the heels of that adoption, what we will be doing is then developing a park master plan, for all of our parks. And are there things that need to be done with each individual park? So we will have, and that will be a lengthier process where we'll have public input in regards, and there'll be online opportunities to give us feedback on each individual park. But we'll also be looking at, depending on with the 2040 plan, which direction the city will be growing. We'll also be looking at where do we need to add parks as the city grows into these new areas, and do we need to add neighborhood parks, community parks, and so on. So it's kind of a long answer, Haldra, but that's where we are at currently and where we headed from a park master planning perspective.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I do not see.
We have one more question. When
Go ahead.
do you expect the bridge will be done?
Okay, so right now the bridge, the contractors will potentially start work yet this week on Friday. They'll start getting things ready. Next week they may start putting in pilings and so on, and we're hoping that probably from start to finish, hopefully it would take no more than 2 months, to finish the project. So we're hoping that maybe by mid-May to the end of May, the bridge would be complete, and then that trail will be open again. Any other questions? And I don't see any other hands raised. What I'm going to do is my information should be on your screen right now, and with this, if you think of something, what we'll do is we'll put this PowerPoint up on our website. We'll get it up there tomorrow, and people can take a look at it. If you have neighbors or friends or others that ask about it, you can go ahead and direct them to our website. If you have any further questions, comments, go ahead and you can email me, give me a call. Again, we will be taking this to the Parks and Recreation Commission on March 25th, which is next week, Thursday. That information, we try to get it out, no later than Tuesday. And what we will be doing is sharing all of these comments, the comments, the questions that you've had. We do share that with the Parks and Recreation Commission, so they get a full understanding of the feedback that we received. So with that said, I don't see any other questions. I don't see any other hands raised. We did, wind up with, about 13 or so people in attendance. So again, thank you for attending. Thank you for your comments. And again, if you have any additional comments or questions, go ahead and reach out to me in the next few days. So thank you and have a good night.